It's a great pleasure for me to pass you over to your real host for this roundtable. That is the president of EFCA, Benoit Clocheret. Benoit.
Thank you very much, David. Please let me extend to you all first of all a warm welcome to our fourth session of our EFCA week, which is this closing conference entitled Be Prepared for the Recovery and Resilience Facility. And I would like to especially thank all the panelists that are with us today and Mrs. Kirsten Jorna. We started the week with a very stimulating webinar led by our Future Leaders Group, combining a very informative panel on circular economy and a presentation of the top 7 projects of our annual competition. We will, by the way, finish our conference today with a short presentation and award ceremony to highlight how important our future leaders are in the eyes of EFCA. The second day, it was Wednesday of the EFCA week, was dedicated to our traditional General Assembly, and we shared yesterday the status reports on our numerous committees and task forces. This was the third day of the EFCA week, including the Internal Market Committee and the European Green Deal Committee, whose activity is in direct connection with our conference today. I would also like, as an introduction, to share a few words about EFCA with you. As many of you know, the European Federation of Engineering Consultancy Associations is the only federation to represent the engineering consultancy industry in Europe. It was founded in 1992, so we will celebrate the 30th anniversary next year in Istanbul. And EFCA has member associations in 29 European countries, representing over 10,000 companies. And globally speaking, the engineering consultancy sector in Europe employs a bit more than 1 million employees, with, of course, a vast majority of engineers. And EFCA's mission is to promote the European engineering consultancy industry on a European level, and more specifically represent it to the European institutions. Be prepared for the Recovery and Resilience Facility is the topic of our conference today, as David introduced. After all these major and unprecedented difficulties that Europe and the world have gone through over the past 18 months and are still enduring, unfortunately, this almost 700 billion facility is truly awaited by the European economic stakeholders and the citizens at large. This is why we are extremely happy and honored to welcome Mrs. Kirsten Jorna as our exceptional keynote speaker this morning. Mrs. Jorna has worked with the European Commission for more than 30 years in many positions, including head of cabinet of Commissioner Barnier between 2010 and 2012, and Deputy Director General for DG Economic and Financial Affairs from 2017 to April 2020, if I'm not wrong. She's been Director General for DG Grow, meaning internal market, industry, entrepreneurship, and SMEs for 15 months now. And once again, we are delighted to welcome you, Mrs. Jorna, as a keynote speaker of our EFCA annual conference. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And I'm also delighted to be with you here because I'm a lawyer, but in all my professional and life experience, engineers have been the ones with the solutions. And I'm a very solution-oriented person, so I'm really delighted to have you here, to be here with you. I announce that immediately, shamelessly abuse of this opportunity, because I'll have 2 questions, which are not totally linked to what we're discussing today, but I'll have 2 questions for you at the end of my intervention as well. Now, as I said, solutions, that's the call of the time. David, you mentioned that there's money. True, there's a lot of money at the moment, but my experience, and even if I come from the finance world, in my previous job where I was actually also the EIB and the EIF board member for the Commission, money is not everything. So the money, we are now looking at how member states actually plan their projects for the future based on their plans for the Recovery and Resilience Facility. And it's true that what we see at the moment, it's not final, some 18% of the funds they have are dedicated to construction. The construction ecosystem is the one that is reflected in, as far as we've seen, all the national recovery plans. There are ecosystems that are not so vastly reflected, like tourism, for example, and I think that's maybe we have to work a bit more on that. But so for sure there is money, but what we need is the project to invest that money. And I make a fine distinction here, not spend the money. That's what finance ministers do, but invest the money. And to invest it well, we need the right projects. And that's really where we need you. So in my little introduction, I wanted to say a word or two on the challenge as we see it, on how we want to go about, I mean, what's the European impulse to address the challenge? And then have a little deep dive on the construction system in particular, and the construction ecosystem, and then my little conclusion. Now, if I look at the challenge clearly for us is the twin transition. It's the most, profound change for a generation or even more that we're planning to do by greening and digitizing our single market economy. It's not about bouncing back, like many say, we had COVID, so we have to bounce back. No, it's really about bouncing forward to build a better economy, a more sustainable economy, and a new economy which is based on data. We presented in beginning of May our updated single market, our updated industry and single market strategy, where we try to learn some of the lessons from past year on the pandemic. And one of the elements, one of the chapters is really about the green business case. So there is the money, but if there's no project and if there's no business case, you will not have that transformation. And for making something a business case, you need an idea, you need the technology to do it, you need for sure access to finance in order to scale it up, you need the skills, the people to actually do it, and you need a market. So it's these 5 things that we say you need for making that transformation happen. What we also did, and that's why I rushed down to get my cup, these are the 14 industrial ecosystems that actually irrigate the European single market economy. And they range from tourism to proximity, to retail, to construction, to mobility. So what we're looking at is really these ecosystems, how we can find the transformational business case in all of these. So what we want to achieve, it's the minus 555 ambition for decarbonization. That's the, and we will come with a regulatory framework for this on the 14th of July, big package, 12 proposals. But it's also about the data use, the data spaces around these ecosystems, the connected objects. It's about the circular economy. And in order to better understand this, we want, and this is how we're going to address it, is to develop pathways for every single ecosystem. And in these pathways, I mean, if you look at our industry strategy, we had an X-ray of every ecosystem attached to the strategy. And on this X-ray, we see, of course, the description, who you are, how many SMEs, but we also look at the investment needs to recover. We look at the decarbonization potential. We look at the technology, do we have the technologies to actually do that transition, or do we need to invest more in research? We also look at the markets. So it's nice to have green steel, but who's going to buy it? And what can we do to make sure that there's also a market for these products? And being a market also means, it's consumer awareness and attitudes, but it's also maybe something like carbon contracts for difference until there's a real market. We're looking at how do we have to protect the investment cycle actually, while our company's investing in green steel, should we have much cheaper not green steel come in and fragilize that position? So carbon border adjustment mechanism we're discussing, and that will be part of the package on the 14th of July. So when we look at the transition pathways for these different ecosystems, it's really a collaborative approach, and we will reach out very broadly to ranging from those who come up with the ideas, the universities, to the startup scene, the scale-up scene. And we are trying to identify upfront what are the solutions we need and how do we get them. I myself still today a member in the one and only Continental Venture Fund, the European Council Innovation Fund, which is 100% backed by the Commission. And we are really trying to extract from what we see the solutions that we will need for tomorrow, and not waiting until maybe somebody intends to invest or not, but I mean to pull them out of the game and to really push them to market readiness and market take up, because we think the solutions are strategic. This is a new way of doing things, and there are a couple of billions behind that, just to say, of course, to leverage private money also to come in. So that's the pathways. Now, if I zoom onto the construction system, oh, sorry, I forgot one thing about the pathways. Also, it's the skills, because that will be key. And I think that in your, you see that probably earlier than any other partner in the ecosystem. It's the skills. And what we've done is to develop blueprints for skills needs up till 2030 for the different ecosystems. And what we're now doing is to bring together all stakeholders, and in particular the social partners, around roundtables for skills. This is an initiative that my commissioner, Thierry Breton, does jointly with the employment commissioner, Mr. Schmidt, and that we are trying to figure out and have a collaboration. What are the skills that the companies will need to deliver these solutions and this transformation? And how can we finance the skilling up? I mean, and what are the skills that we have, and how can we define curricula, finance, work through exchanges to skill up and to get the right skills? So that closes my point on how to go about it. Then comes the construction ecosystem. The construction ecosystem is key. It's like transport. It's something everybody has an opinion about, because that's where we live. You know, we all live somewhere, and that's why it's very. I mean, it's a very visible way of doing that green transformation. Last year we adopted the renovation wave, which is born from the need to be faster and broader on construction, because construction, the buildings today, is 40% of our CO2 emissions. That's a big chunk. I mean, compared, for example, to steel and materials, where you are around 5% of CO2 emissions, and that's a big investment to work there. But construction is very important. What we want to do is to renovate 35 million building units until 2030, and that means estimate 275 billion a year in investment. There is a special subgroup on this, which is social housing, which we find very important. That would mean 800,000 building units a year. And there's this affordable housing initiative that we have, which seeks to create 100 lighthouse projects, which are, it's not only about the building, it's about the district, it's about the idea of building for a community, not a unit, but building a community and the frame for a community. This is also very closely linked to the Bauhaus initiative that we have, new Bauhaus initiative, which is about thinking how people want to live in the future and how they want to live in a green, a more sustainable environment. The challenge here is huge, but it's, again, I say, and it's very visible. And when the European Parliament elections took place, a massive amount of people voted, much more than in previous elections. And they all voted to express this wish, this aspiration for a more sustainable future. And here the ecosystem on construction is really, like transport, like mobility, a very visible part to deliver this. We believe that this activity might generate up to 160,000 new jobs. And I'll just drop some keywords. You're for sure much more the expert on this, but how we want in this pathway to contribute from the public side to this. There is the Levels initiative, which is to measure sustainability. My experience in particular from sustainable finance is, if you don't measure it, it's not worth it. So we need common standards for measuring. We have BIM, the Building Information Modeling, which which we try to share with public procurement authorities that procure, because a big chunk of the work, what we see from the member states projects, will be in public buildings and renovation of public buildings. So that will be public procurement, and how can we make that better and standardize that? It's about digital permits to make construction more fluid. It's about automated construction, some printing. It's also about circular economy, circular building methods. It's about the construction products. We're planning a review of the construction product regulation. It's about standards. There will be a new initiative on standards, and we have a really top system in Europe for standards, but it could function better, and we could in particular make it to deliver more to priorities. Today it's very much a bottom up. What we want to do is to identify together with the stakeholders what are really the standards we need to make Europe green and competitive. So these are a couple of keywords. Are digital twins. I'm in a previous experience, in work experience, I was very much on board with standards, and I strongly believe in the model of digital twins, where you can test things in the digital and before rolling it out, and you don't lose a lot of time, actually doing it. But I'm sure there will be more points from you. We're also looking into the elements of a data space for building, so that and that's again linked to the digital permits and the digital passports for buildings, to generate data that we can use to measure performance and to also generate maybe new business models on that basis in terms of monitoring. The data spaces at the moment are only emerging because nobody really knows whose data they are. If I want to invest to build a business model using them, will I still have access to the data? Will somebody else take the data? Or I invest and then somebody steals the idea. So there's a lot of uncertainty, which is lethal for investment. And we are presenting after the summer our Data Act, which will try to organize a level playing field when it comes to data spaces, access to use of permissions around the data spaces. The first data space we are looking at the moment is tourism, the tourism ecosystem, because also we're starting from scratch here. This sector has been really hit very badly. So this was my walk through challenge, industrial strategy, ecosystem construction. Now, I mean, in conclusion, there is really so much to do. We need all of you, and I think we even need more than you. So I would also pledge here to convince the next generation to follow in your steps and make that attractive. And I think the previous generation always has a role in that. And I also want to mention girls. I saw that there was one lady, apart from me. We have Alice Perry, who graduated in engineering in 1906. So we can follow that example as well. And with this come my two questions. So my question number one is, you as engineers, do you have obstacles? Do you see barriers when you want to do your work anywhere in the single market? because we are concerned that business services are still difficult to exercise, irrespective of where you are registered or where you have your main place of work. We're announcing in the strategy an idea of creating standards for, not regulations, standards to facilitate the exercise of business services. And I think engineering services, like architect services, they're key to making that transformation happen. Architects, for example, there are 15 or so member states. When you're an architect, you have to take, I don't know how many insurances for every member state where you're going to work. That's cheap. If you're insured, you're insured. So what's the point? But this is the type of thing we would like to look at. So I'm interested in your feedback. And my second point is scarcity of construction materials and products. How do you see that situation? Is that a breakdown of our supply chains? Is this the economy, of the big except to China? How serious do you see that challenge that scarcity in the way we are? Thank you very much. I'm very interested now in your reactions.
Well, Kirsten, Mrs. Jona, thank you very much indeed for laying out a very full picture, as well as to the directions that you intend to move, and for throwing us a couple of questions. Let me just check with you, Kirsten. You can stay for some response, can you? Have you got time to stay to listen to the answers from our panel, first of all, at least? Great, good. There's a nod there. Well, I'm very pleased to see it. So let me go around.
I'm very interested in having your answers to my question.
Well, I'll think about that when I've heard from the people who really have the keys to that. But it's been very interesting, just as a little bit of background, I've worked with EFCA for a number of years, just picking up on some of these strands over time and seeing where the sense of opportunism and frustration lies. So I'm going to be very keen to hear again from our panel. Let me very quickly introduce our roundtable panelists, because Kirsten, I appreciate your time is probably quite short, and then I'll give you a little bit more background to them after these questions as we delve a little bit deeper. We're joined, as we've already seen, by Benoit Clocheret, who is the EFCA president. Georg Pendel is an architect. He is not just an architect, he's also president of the Architects Council of Europe. Georg, thank you very much for being with us. Philippe Dessois is the vice president of the EIC, the European International Contractors, and of the European Construction Industry Federation, the FIEC. And Fernando Nicolas is the international director of ADIF, ADIF, Spanish Railway Infrastructure Management Company. So you've got two questions to deal with already straight away, panel. Let me start, actually. I think it would make sense if I start with a contractor, if you like, Philippe Dessois. I don't know if you want to pick up on one or two or both, but it seems to make sense to start with that question of what are the biggest barriers that you feel you're facing?
Well, I mean, of course, like the director general rightly say, is where is the money going? She said, okay, not to spend the money, but to invest it, of course. But as contractor, we need plans for that, of course. We are coming after the engineers. The problem we have today, everybody knows it recently. It's a lack of skill, which has also already been highlighted also by the director general. But we have another issue, which is the increase of raw material price, which is a major issue for a lot of contractors. And as a FIEC, we appeal to the Commission also to take some measure on that. So there are a few problems, of course, on the market to be solved, and I hope that we can do it together.
That sounds like a yes and yes, effectively, to the two questions in terms of, yes, major issues to be dealt with on both those areas. Let's turn to Georg. You're an architect. Georg, Kirsten raised the question about standards and the ease of operating.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. Just coming to the last point, which was mentioned, skills. I'm coming from the western part of Austria, and we are let's say, quite well equipped with that. We have very good craftsmanship and very skillful craftsmanship. But I see that this is not happening in all the European areas, what I got to know. And I would say a kind of a better recognition of craftsmanship would be good. Very general point. Of course, hinders and barriers for architects should be less, as of course architectural profession is a sectoral profession. So actually we have easier access to different countries, but still there is not much cross-border service at all. About 9% is, our studies show that there is only 9%. But this is based, in my personal view, rather on a cultural phenomenon and on habits. For example, I am living in Innsbruck. I'm working in Innsbruck, partly also in Finland, but mainly in Innsbruck. And we have a lot of colleagues who are working in Vienna, which is a distance of 500 kilometers. And we have a very few who work to Munich, which is a distance of 170 kilometers, and where the barriers actually would not really exist. Still, to tell Jona, one thing is that we have the phenomena, we have the automatic recognition in our profession, but in case that we have the mixed qualification of an individual person, and this comes mostly true for those who are moving. So those young colleagues who are moving around Europe, they get the problem of the so-called mixed qualification, and they drop out of the automatic recognition system, which might be recovered or might be repairable or to be repaired by two countries. But definitely they fall out in case of any MRA. So there might be an MRA pretty soon. It's signed already with Canada, but these people who are young people, who are moving people, they drop out of that. It might look like a detail point, but in my personal view, it is a problem, because it in a certain way discriminate those young ones who are moving, who have the European experience.
Okay, Georg, I'm going to interrupt you there. So, because I just want to check, it sounds like you're saying actually culturally there may not be that much crossover of borders going on anyway, but the value of uniform standards would assist the next generation more?
It would, but when we talk about standards, I would say we face a bit the overwhelming of standards. Standardization is growing and growing. They are producing paperwork and rules and recommendations without end. They don't make building cheaper.
No,
if I look to works of certain colleagues working in France, if you would work like this in Austria, you would end up in jail.
Well, we'll keep that as an opinion rather than a fact, shall we?
Yes.
Georg, thank you very much for the moment. Fernando, I want to turn to you. You know, you work with massive infrastructural projects. We've heard several times that one of the big barriers is the skills gap. What do you find as the big barrier that Kirsten should know about?
Well, good morning, and first of all, thank you very much for inviting Adif to take part in this event. We think that railways are going to play a key role in new European strategy, and as Mrs. Jorna has mentioned, perhaps especially in Green Deal. And of course, the Recovery and Resilience Facility will be essential to ensure implementation of those European policies. And railways are an efficient investment, and we welcome that the RRF gives priority to this clean and efficient mode of transportation. But I think that the key point is that perhaps we are not facing new challenges. But we will have the opportunity, thanks to these new funds, to speed up and catalyze the way to achieve those challenges.
Fernando, thank you very much indeed. Benoit, let me turn to you then. We heard the frustrations of an architect there. What about consulting engineers?
Yeah, I would like to jump on 2 or 3 topics. The one with regard to skills, it's very obvious. We run a biannual barometer with EFCA, and a year ago, the problem number 1 was lack of projects and fear for the future, that the industry might fall apart. And the year after, meaning now, we are back to what it was 18 months ago, which is item number 1. Problem number 1 is lack of resources and talented resources. So, and in this way, we need the support, at all levels, national levels and European levels, also to promote, scientific and technical careers for youngsters. And it starts at school and for girls and boys. And, the more you can help with this, it starts there. And we need your help. We need your help on this, because down the road, then we are lacking engineers and talented engineers. The second item, which is also very important to us, is, and you more than alluded to that, is the data space. And of course, digitalization is progressing in a big way, very, very quickly in our industry, and which also means, blurred frontiers between engineers and also IT providers. And there is an issue around this about intellectual property, about fair competition between the different stakeholders in digitalization, and we need to accelerate on this. And I'm glad to hear that you are taking these initiatives and new decisions that are about to be issued. And this is true between the engineering firms, and I'm sure that the architects and the contractors, they are on the same wavelength. BIM is growing, and it's good. Automated or generative design, as we call it, is also ramping up, and this is good because it means more efficiency. It means higher capacity to contract at a quicker pace. But we need to make sure that all this is done on a balanced way with regard to all the stakeholders, including all the digital providers, one way or another. And it's also true comparing EU with the rest of the world, because we are sometimes facing some unfair competition just by the fact that the licenses, they don't cost the same price in Europe than in the US or somewhere in Asia. So there is a big topic around digitalization. And of course, we didn't talk about it this morning or not yet, is about the procurement rules. We know that the Public Procurement Directive will be revisited a couple of years from now, 2023, 2024. Maybe you of course, it's to us as well, to stay away from always the lowest bidder. So you are going to tell me that I'm advocating for my business, but it is very true. There are numerous examples of projects that are started with the lowest bidder, and either it ends in court, or after a year or 2 years, you have to change the whole casting because it has gone sideways. So of course, all this needs to be monitored and to be done at a fair price. But this, all you can do and continue doing about fair procurement, about most advantageous, economically advantageous tenders, not only based on price, is key to all of us in the construction industry.
Well, it's quite a list there. Kirsten, I'll give you a chance to bounce back on what you've heard. I'm sure a lot of it you would have expected, not least on skills, scarcity of resources, and the like. Education is an interesting area. Is that an area where any of the new funds can be distributed as well? Because that obviously is another long-term project, goes way beyond issues just of COVID or climate change.
So on the recovery, thank you. On the recovery and resilience facility, it's about reforms and investment, so the two. And the reforms part is actually linked to the European semester recommendations that were issued in 2020 and in 2019. And these recommendations, a number of them for a number of member states, they address education. But it's always thought in this education is, until you're 18 thinking, maximum 18. And what we really need, is my feeling, also looking at my own children, is and myself, by the way, is lifelong learning. is to organize it throughout the career. And organizing it throughout the career, I don't think that the state or the government is the best place to do it. Because what we need to organize is that people have the skills for the technology that's developing. And I don't have to tell you that the technological cycles, they're faster and faster. So whilst it is certainly very relevant to know your math, your chemistry, your physics, it's very important to adapt and to be able to adapt. And this is something that, to my mind, employers and workers have to organize in some way. And then there's maybe public money that can come into this to support this, but the initiative has to come from the sector themselves. And then there's a third part I'd just like to mention, because it impressed me a lot in Singapore. So people get a kind of backpack. Everybody, each of us, gets a backpack of government money to actually upskill, increase productivity, they call it, every 5 years. And I know in France, a system was kind of inspired by this, the life learning system. But it's around these things that we have to consider, have to think. But the beginning starts with identifying the needs and being sure and having a kind of collaborative social partner approach on this.
Right.
I want to say one word on public procurement. So, because I've worked twice on public procurement, on the first set of directives, way back, well, I'm not sure going to divulge how long back, and then when I was working with Michel Barnier in, Barnier 2, because in Barnier 1 we had seen how important public procurement rules are, and you're right, because there was a lot of regional funds. Commissioner Barnier was in charge of regional funds, and public procurement, there were difficulties in applying them. So when Michel Barnier was commissioner for single market, we started immediately to look at public procurement to make sure that it can also carry the value and the innovation and not only the lowest. And there was a huge process for reforming public procurement. It was a huge discussion also in the parliament. I compare it to a cathedral, and you don't build the cathedral every 2 years. What is important, and I am convinced that it contains all the potential to not do the lowest bid, to have innovation procurement, because sometimes, and you must know that, I want a solution, but I don't know how to get. I mean, I'm a public authority. I want a solution, but I don't know how to get there. So I have to develop it. But then I have to make sure, because otherwise there's no business case, that we can continue to roll this out. And this we reflect, and it's possible under our procurement rules. And but it's not sufficiently known. And when we had the crisis, the first thing some member states said, okay, we put up the thresholds. So below we do whatever we want, but that's not the solution. I mean, you need to maintain a fair level. Now, however, and there is a lot of work. I mean, it's also in my team's public procurement angle, which, by the way, is not sitting in a public procurement directorate. The directorate that team works under is called investment, because it's about investment. We had a big reorganization in my team recently. So it's about investment. And we clearly deploy that policy with the investment angle. And we have our big bidders initiative, for example, to help our help desk to help for big projects to get a kind of pre-screening, a kind of comfort letter on the procedure, so you're safe to challenges. And then we just proposed our subsidies proposal, which allows to look at when you have which requires foreign bidders who are not in our state control rules to open up their books. And if they benefited from state aid, then that's kind of that disqualifies their offer. That's
So there,
European Parliament at the moment.
so there are some reassurances there. Just to extend the analogy a little bit, if it's a cathedral, one would hope you can still move the furniture around within the cathedral to a certain extent, shift the altar left or right a bit, because that issue of public procurement is something I've heard actually year after year as a major frustration for engineers in particular. But I know Georg wanted to jump in as well there, Georg. So quickly over to you.
Thank you. Just about public procurement. Of course, we are very happy to face the new European Bauhaus initiative, which focuses on sustainability, which is focusing basically on quality and holistic approach and fostering quality. And so I say, how can you treat the procuring of intellectual services in the same way as you want if you want to buy bricks? And this is not possible, I think. What I think is absolutely needed is a stronger, is fostering the question of quality procurement in respect of price-based procurement. And I would even go this far, that intellectual services, it should be excluded to procure on price-based decisions only. That's the main message, and I think this we join with the engineers. And that's my main message. Put quality in the lead. That's the thing.
It's a strong message, Kirsten. I know we're rather lucky we've held on to you for as long as we have. That is a strong message. We've got one question coming in saying, how about training public clients so they're not afraid to use modern approaches to procurement? But it's about...
We're doing that.
Right, well, that's good. That's answered that very easily. But so much of this seems to be for engineers and for architects about what is the value, not the price. And that's a sort of, they're beating their head against hopefully a large digital screen now, but they don't feel that they're getting through.
I heard you, and I will take this up. This being said, I mean, it only shows that our efforts that we're making with the public buyers, with explaining things, with the different initiatives that we have also on the, counseling, that we have to make it even clearer. And I will take back this. But I'm concerned. I'm convinced there is a big potential in the rules that we have, but those who apply the rules are, let's be blunt, a very conservative crowd. So, and they hate, and I would hate that if I were a public buyer, to be blocked by litigation. So I try to err on the very safe side.
Yeah, well, your words there got a thumbs up from Georg for taking that on board. Kirsten, can I thank you on behalf of all of us for giving us so much of your time and insight into the way in which you're looking at this. Obviously, it's a massive opportunity and it's a massive challenge all rolled into one. So thank you very much indeed. We do appreciate your time.
Thank you. May I have one last question?
Of course you may.
The scarcity of materials. Construction materials, is that an issue or not?
Thumbs up, thumbs down. It is from Fernando's nodding, and Georg is certainly agreeing, as is Benoit and Philippe. I think, yeah.
Can I then ask you maybe if you have ideas on solutions, what to do it short term or longer term? We have this. I didn't mention it, but in the industry strategy update, we're looking at supply chains. And we are really thinking how to monitor supply chains across the ecosystems, and if there is something we can do to facilitate. And I do feel, I mean, I can only read the press and, some anecdotal comments. If there's something we could do to help alleviate that so that we can actually have a renovation wave and not only words, please let me know.
Okay, well, Benoit?
Yes, maybe one of the issues, there is the cost itself of the materials, but one of the problems is also the fact that there is, especially in major projects, there is a long time between the preliminary stages of a project where you start issuing what could be the envelope, the overall cost of a project, saying it will be 100 million or 200 million. Based on a certain basis, maybe 3-4 years ago. And when time comes to start constructing, then so many things have happened in between. So and I don't see any way to bridge that gap in a final way. So it means that it's back to the procurement things and aspects that there needs to be some processes within the procurement methods to allow some kind of update, because we render. I have several projects in mind where there is a huge misunderstanding between the public client and the contractors and the engineers about the fact that one is saying, but this should cost 200 million, and now it's 300 million, just because 5 years have happened between the initial evaluation and the reality of today.
Good point, isn't it? Philippe, your hand is in the air.
But yes, I mean, just one remark. I mean, we talk about public procurement. I mean, what we are facing also in Europe, and I think it's worth to mention it here, is the unfair competition. I mean, we see more and more, of course, Chinese contractors, I would say, invading part of Europe. And I mean, most of these companies are state-owned companies. So when we talk about public procurement, I mean, we should also be on the same playing field. I mean, we cannot compete as private contractor, state-owned companies. And they have, I mean, like you said, for material, for example, they can have a huge advantage. I mean, it's more a political company than a contractor, let's say, for some Chinese corporation.
But Philippe, that's why I said we have a proposal now on foreign subsidies. Help us to get it through the parliament quickly, because that would mean we neutralize that unfair kind of boost that the state-owned enterprises or any other enterprise gets.
Okay, the onus coming from both sides. Fernando.
Yes, this is a very interesting point, the public procurement, because don't forget that when a public company is carrying out a tender, is not only to build a project or to carry out a project, but also is making industrial policy in your country. For instance, ADIF has been investing for the 30 years in Spain in order to modernize our rail network. And thanks to this huge effort, we not only have one of the most innovative and modern rail network in the world, but also a strong railway cluster with companies that are very competitive in international markets and that are working all over the world in rail projects. So public procurement gives to the public companies a second responsibility.
Yeah, good point. And Fernando, thank you. Yeah, I think ADIF is working in India, Saudi Arabia, you name it, it's all over the world. I have got, and you'll like this, Kirsten, because you talk about a gender balance, and perhaps we might say the slight lack of it in this field at the moment. I've got a remark and a question from Jacqueline Ayer of NL Engineers in the Netherlands. The remark was, don't charge VAT on reused materials, as a good sustainability message to get out there. And just in answer to your question about obstacles to engineering services, Jacqueline says we need projects to invest in, not to spend money on. Engineering firms, at least the Dutch ones I work for, notice it's difficult to get the socially valuable solutions chosen. In fact, Jacqueline's with us. Rather than me spell it all out, Jacqueline, just if you can unmute for a moment, if you're happy to. And yes, just explain your position there. That would be really helpful.
Oh, okay. Well, as I said in the chat, we see that. Well, I agree on. I'm very happy with the words of Kirsten Johanna that it's important that we are not seeking projects to put money, spend money on, but to invest, to really invest. And what we see is that it's really difficult to get invested in projects that are socially most valuable. And that's because values like biodiversity or that has to do with sustainability, they do not count as much as other economic values that we are more used to. So we really need to make sure that the values we create by sustainable solutions, that they are counted in the business case. And so I'm very happy to hear that one of the activities in the plans is to work on measuring sustainability, and I think you also need to work on a standard language on sustainability, which is part of that. But the next step is to make sure that investors and also governments are that it's mandatory to value to be more clear about the cost and value for society of project. So because we are investing in, we are taking constantly mortgages on the future with the project that we are doing right now, and we really need to include that cost in our decisions.
Okay, you've got a total agreement from Sarah Ingle on the line as well. Jacqueline also saying short-termism by government and clients needs to be discouraged and challenged. Georg, thank you. A quick remark here on the question of materials. New materials actually often are traditional materials. They should be made more competitive again as well. And Frank Kahlenbach has just said that the problem with the Commission's proposal on foreign subsidies is that the burden of proof for an individual subsidy is effectively on the Commission, therefore it's on the competitors to provide it. That's almost impossible to prove. That's wrong. Okay, a clear no, that's not how it works for you, Frank, there coming from Kirsten. Kirsten, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to explain what's wrong about that.
30 seconds. No, I want to use the 30 seconds to say we will go for sustainable, and it's member states have to, because 30% of their projects have to be sustainable. So the projects they are putting forward for getting financing, they have to prove it's sustainable, and we will develop the metrics. And by the way, the money we're taking up, these 750 billion, 200 billion of it will be green bonds. We're developing the first green bond standards actually globally at the moment and rolling it out. So when we pay it back, we will have to say to investors who gave us the money, yes, it was invested in sustainable. So that point will come through. It will no longer be the cheapest. It will, I mean, the sustainability will be paramount to be able to explain, because otherwise you don't get the money. So I see the mechanics being right. Why is it wrong? It's for the Commission to, I mean, when you're in a process and you have this other bidder with this extremely low offer, or then the authority, the managing authority, has to notify this, and then the Commission pulls it up, and then the procedure is stayed for that particular, until we have sufficient information. And if we don't have sufficient information, because we don't get it from then, you know, the other bidder can be excluded from the procedure. I'm very happy to send you a bit more of information, which you can then distribute to the participants of this meeting. I'm sure the proposal is currently Council and Parliament, so it's still in the legislative process. But, you know, the way we conceived it, I can explain.
I'm sure EFCA would be delighted to do that. Kirsten, I'm going to let you go, but I know that Benoit, I think, were you just putting a hand up for a last comment there, Benoit?
No, I mainly wanted to, you know, warmly thank you, Mrs. Jorna, for your presence this morning. Express my gratitude. I think just to say it very straightforwardly, it means a lot to us. And there were especially two things from your initial statements. You mentioned you are a solution-oriented person, and it's all about bouncing forward and not bouncing back. And I think that's exactly what we're experiencing on a daily basis, being you know, architects or engineers or contractors. And so let's continue that dialogue. You kindly responded to the Voice of EFCA that we sent you at the end of 2020. So no, let's continue to work on that. We have our issues, you have your topics, and let's continue dialoguing on that. And thank you very much again for your presence today. You know, truly it means a lot to us. We know how busy you are.
As a lawyer. But I mean, we have different issues, but we have a common goal, and that's important.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
That's good to hear. Kirsten, Jorna, thank you very much indeed. Much appreciated to have your time. And I know, Benoit, what you ultimately want to see is a world in which the first question you ask about a project is how sustainable is that? Well, it's got to be profitable at the same time. So huge amount of food for thought both ways, I think. Thank you very much, Kirsten. We've used up a bit of our time, but I'm very pleased to say we do now have an opportunity to hear a little bit more from our panelists. Not least to give us their perspective from their particular point of view. I want to expand a tiny bit on the biographies too, so you know where our guests are coming from. Georg Pendel, as I mentioned, architect, CEO of Pendel Architects, and has been for 17 years now. So Georg's main fields are social housing, private housing, renovation and reuse, key words here, industrial and commercial buildings, workshops, passive house standards. He is the co-founder and president of the Architektur Tage Association and president of the Architects Council of Europe. Philippe Dessois, Philippe's been 40 years in the construction business nearly now, from Alstom and Batignolles to Bessix, working projects on the Middle East, Africa, Europe, the Burj Khalifa Tower being one of them. He's the general manager for business development for Bessix and also serves on Bessix's executive and strategic committee. And he is vice president, as I said, of the EIC and the FIEC. Benoit Clocheret is not just president of EFCA, of course, he's the CEO of the Atelier Group, also director of Syntec Ingénierie, I'll get it right there, and a French foreign trade advisor. Benoit worked with the Suez Group previously, head of several subsidiaries in France and the US, and has been made a Chevalier of the Légion d'honneur. And Fernando Nicolas is the international director of ADIF, as I said, and he's built his career around trade and international affairs, working on numerous projects in Africa. You raised already other international projects, Fernando, India, Saudi Arabia, I think, Egypt, and ADIF is worth pointing out has, I believe, deployed the largest high-speed network in Europe. Only you've got to go to China to get bigger, I think, is the bottom line there. So those are our four panelists, and I'm going to give you what will have to be maybe 3 minutes or so, really, and I'll start with you, Philippe, to just outline really for you, given, yes, what we've heard, but also from your own platform, what's the big issue now for you to deal with?
Okay, thank you. Thank you first to inviting me to participate on behalf of EIC and FIEC for this roundtable. I mean, for contractors, of course, I mean, we fully support the EU Green Deal agenda. I mean, a few weeks ago, as EIC, I mean, we organized a workshop and we analyzed the impact of the EU carbon neutrality goal and the future business as European contractors. So we arrived at the conclusion that, I mean, the construction industry, we have, of course, a big responsibility to contribute to the EU policy goal to bring greenhouse gas emission to net zero by 2050 and to reduce them by more than half by 2030. So for the construction value chain also, I mean, consisting of construction companies, architects, civil, structural engineers, construction equipment, material producers. I mean, it's a big transformation for our industry, which has to happen. So we have also analyzed the opportunities, but the challenge for the construction industry. I mean, for example, for the CO2 emission, I mean, we are, of course, part of the problem. We can be part of the solution also, to find technical answers to the challenge. But I mean, we have to work, I would say, together with other industries in this field. So I think most of the contractors are committed to sustainable construction, and we are committed, I mean, to adapt, change our industry to match, of course, the EU goals. And we also concluded, and I think it's a good news, that managing the carbon neutrality challenge is not just a technical challenge. It's to change the mindset of contractors, of engineers, suppliers, and also of our clients. I mean, being public or private. I mean, we mentioned a while ago that it's not possible to realize sustainable and carbon neutral construction project on the basis of low price. I mean, this will have a cost impact. And today, I mean, we still see clients obsessed with the lowest price on the market. So we see the EU is moving forward with this EU industry alliance on raw material, hydrogen, batteries, circular plastic, and we would like also to take the opportunity to remind the EU Commission of the Construction 2050 Alliance, which can play a central role in this context. So we appreciate as a European Federation that the EU Commission has identified the construction sector as one 14 industrial ecosystem in the latest update of the EU industry strategy. I mean, the director also, Ms. Jorna, referred to some important element of the European industrial strategy update to boost the confidence in our sector. I mean, we have, of course, the EU renovation rate, the flagship renovation initiative, affordable housing initiative, and the revision of the construction product regulation. So these are, of course, welcome initiatives which will help to improve the Green Deal and the digital capacity in the construction ecosystem. And we, of course, must not lose sight also of the industry operational needs. I mean, we discuss about the skills, we discuss about the cost of material. So there is a big requirement now to train our workers, to put long-term policy maybe in place for education as well. So, I mean, we are, of course, I mean, as I mentioned before, alarmed about the significant price increase in the construction industry for the raw material, for the transport. And, I mean, this can be, of course, a problem in the future for the implementing this project. I think maybe some specific initiative also that could be
very briefly. That would be great.
Yeah. So I mean, let's say maybe to conclude, I mean, we would need maybe to think more circular. We need to design recyclable, reusable solution. We need to make everything more sustainable, sourcing or decision. Innovation, of course, I mean, we discussed about the digital twin, the BIM project. I mean, this should help also. We will need fair and more transparent competition, maybe. Also, more green construction products, new business model. I think, I mean, with the support of the EU, let's say, I mean, we should be, as contractor and engineers, part of the solution.
Philippe, thank you very much indeed. There's a lot in there, Georg, that I'm sure you would be jumping on board as well, whether we're talking about renovation, housing initiatives, but circular, reusable, sustainable, innovative. That's an architect's dream, presumably. The platform is yours.
Thank you. Well, just in a few words, I was already earlier mentioning the new European Bauhaus initiative by Ursula von der Leyen, and I think this is a window of opportunity and can lead to a great step forward for the whole European Union, also for its economy. And of course, in the question of the climate change, if we know that 38% of the CO2 production comes through the building sector, and also the consumption of the energy is in such a rate, so it's about 40% of heating energy goes to buildings, and we know very well that we have to renovate the real estate what we have in Europe. It's mainly old buildings, and the renovation rate is pretty low. I mean, the rate of new created buildings is about 2% per year, so it would mean that after 50 years, we have covered the whole story, which is actually too slow, as we know now. So to have a renovation wave, a cultural project, means one major thing. That means that we have a more holistic view on our work. We have a more a view which of course then supports sustainability and all its areas, also social sustainability, not only economical, ecological sustainability. And of course it includes, it offers great chances for us as planners. I say now planners, we are all planners, because this only shall work, and this is also the meaning of the word a cultural project. This only works if we focus to the quality of what we are doing, and not only to the opportunity to have it cheap. Everybody knows cheap solutions, especially in the planning sectors, cheap solutions cannot contain much quality, because how could they? It's the main criteria of the work what we are delivering is that the product we are making, the planning product, is not to be described in beforehand. So how can you compare on the price-based only? You cannot, because you don't know the product. And therefore, it has to be, I come back to the public procurement, I think it's a great opportunity to say we need a special chapter in the procurement directive for intellectual services. That's my main message. And then we can really offer services, and the procurers, the public procurers, can go into the lead, can give the best examples, the best practices, how to do their work. Another key issue for me in this key phrase is demolition as an exception. I think this should be one of the game changers. We should get away, because you have to know, well, you know that great part of the European urban building stock is by buildings from late 19th, early 20th century. In German language, we call this Gründerzeit, these block systems, which contain actually a very good living quality already by the room height. This is one thing already. I also always say, no living space lower than 3 meters. That's one message from me. And the second thing is, if we renovate all these building stock in Europe according to only the standards and the norms, polish and build new. Also because mainly if you have 6 floors, you get 7 floors if you make a new building. And so for me, it would be the message, demolition only as an exception. That's quality based.
Those are very strong messages, Georg. Thank you very much indeed for that. Fernando, I'm interested partly about how valuable you think the Recovery and Resilience Facility is going to be for an organisation like yours, and then we go to your key watchwords, if you like, as to for ADIF, what is the most important as we step into this new transition?
Yes, for sure. There are great expectations concerning the railway market for the future, as you all know. The decarbonization policies and the need to solve congestion issues within and among cities are key, and railways have proven to be the best answer. A transportation mode that is cleaner, faster, more reliable than any other. And the European Union has placed railways in the center of its transport policies, especially the European mobility strategy, by which the European Union expects to double high-speed traffic by 2030 and double freight traffic by 2050. And in fact, 2021 has been declared the year of railway by the European Parliament. In order to accomplish all this, we expect a strong financial support that we are now seeing in the Recovery and Resilience Facility, the key instrument at the heart of Next Generation EU. The Spanish government designed a resilience and recovery plan that will translate these funds into actions and real projects. And the plan is based on 4 pillars: transition to a green economy, digital transformation, social cohesion, and gender equality that has been mentioned by Mrs. Jorna before. And ADIF will be key part of this plan through 2 different groups of policies. There are emergency plan for a safe, connected and sustainable mobility within urban areas. And another one is sustainable, safe and connected mobility. And these RRF funds, as well as other funds provided to ADIF, will be invested according to the strategic plan the company is following. It is based on 4 priorities that are safety, service, sustainability, and client orientation. Safety in every aspect, which is our top priority: operational safety, environmental safety, and also, of course, security for goods and people. Service, because as a public body, we work for society to ensure mobility and connectivity. Sustainability, because we are fully committed with sustainability, environmental issues, gender equality, social well-being, circular economy, and finally, our 4th pillar is client orientation, because economic efficiency is key, and for that we analyze risks, benefits, and we make sure we get value for money. In summary, the Spanish plan would add up to almost 6,000 million euros for railway infrastructure in the coming years, in the next 5 years. And this amount will allow ADIF to finish some of the works currently underway in our high-speed lines, allowing for the network to go fully interconnected. Enhance our commuter network as well, something that is required within cities in order to avoid congestion and pollution, as I mentioned before. Networks aims at attracting new clients from freight sector.
Fernando, sorry to interrupt. I'm going to stop you there if that's okay. Partly because I was struggling to hear. We had a little problem with your microphone, but also time is catching up on us. And I do want to ask Benoit also. I want to give you the platform, Benoit, as I have to the speakers there, just for a few moments before I'm going to go around the houses one last time and ask for a takeaway, a point of action. I think the first half of this discussion with Kirsten Jorna has thrown up a huge amount, so I'll be very keen to know what your takeaways might be. But Benoit, sorry, over to you.
Yes, there are so many things to discuss on the various topics that we touched on this morning, but I would like to say a word on cooperation, because just the roundtable that we are having this morning shows how much we can dialogue between the contractors and architects and engineers, and we need to continue dialoguing that way among ourselves, and also bringing or conveying joint messages to the European institutions, and especially on 3 topics. Of course, on procurement, we all know that, and especially on topics like how to push for all the sustainable development criteria in the procurement processes, on the inclusion of life cycle costs. We know it's a challenge. We know it's difficult, but it's the way to go. If we know that the circular economy is really ramping up very, very quickly, and so the procurement processes need to adapt. to this reality that we need to continue pushing. I think there is another topic where we need to cooperate even more, is the competition. I alluded to that earlier, with all the IT players, software providers and so on, because they are providing, softwares to us, but also somehow competing with us. So we need to, FIEC took an initiative a few months ago in this, and I think we need to really go deeper into that, because it's a reality, but it's also a threat that we have to our construction industry at large, and this is something among ourselves and also towards the EU. And there is one last topic that we also, in terms of cooperation, that we see also ramping up, is the what is called the early contractor involvement. So this kind of mutual approach on projects and how we can work together early in projects. I know that there are some very strong supporters of that. There are people completely against it. Once again, the very clean, and there are projects where it fits the project, others that it doesn't fit at all. But I think we need, some countries are at the forefront of that in the Netherlands, for example, and in all the countries. And I think it will flow progressively throughout Europe. And we need to monitor that to see how to make it a success, because it can go sideways as well. So I think I advocate for further dialogue on that as well, because there is so much to do. We need to cooperate to, at the end, have projects that are up to the quality standards that we advocate for, and George and Philippe and Fernando send the exact same thing.
Benoit, thank you very much indeed for that. So look, the title of the roundtable is Be Prepared for the Recovery and Resilience Facility. And I think this last hour and a half will have helped many people to appreciate the ways in which that preparation needs to take place. Let me bounce around the virtual room then for a last moment, and literally, George, a minute at a time if you can, your key takeaway or one single point of action you'd like to pursue.
I can, for the moment, only repeat what I already said. Put quality in the lead.
Well, that says it all. If you can come up with a decent headline, that's the bit people remember, and that's a good headline. Put quality in the lead. Fernando. Sorry, your microphone's off. Thanks.
Well, I think that we're going to have a nice opportunity to speed up our strategies, and we should be committed with the society and with European policies in order to achieve those nice challenges that are on the table.
Well, it's certainly a major injection of funding opportunity, isn't it? Performance-based, although I think that point has been made very clear by the Commission. Philippe, your takeaway?
I think, what we said, of course, just now by Benoit and Fernando is, of course, correct. I would add maybe that we try to work more together. As European. Between engineers, contractors, and client, of course, and also some industry which are still available in Europe.
Yeah. Okay. Good points. Thank you very much, Philippe. And Benoit.
I think I can only emphasize on that, on the cooperation, because Kirsten was saying, it's not all about the money, and if we make it a bit brutally, the money is there. It's all about transferring money into projects. And into valuable projects and sustainable projects and sober projects and all the good qualifications that we all know. We need to work jointly and to make this happen as quickly as possible.
Benoit, thank you very much indeed, and to yourself, to all of you, Fernando as well, to Philippe and to George. Thank you very much indeed for contributing to what I think has been an excellent discussion and brought out a number of, well, frankly, a lot of frustrations, but a recognition of the opportunities that lie ahead. And in a way, that's the key word, isn't it? Because it is about the future. It's about bouncing forwards, not bouncing back better. And the people who are going to do that are, by and large, going to be the next generation and the ones who take us forward. And to that end, I want to segue really to our Future Leaders winner. And it's a competition which has been pieced together. The chair of the jury for the Future Leaders competition is Nicola Matic. Nicola, I hope you're there, and I'm delighted to pass over to you.
Thank you very much. This was a really brilliant discussion, and I think people around could catch up ideas. However, I would like to draw attention of our future leaders and youngsters that are coming and taking over our positions in our work. So, in introduction of this winner ceremony, I would like to draw their kind of attention on the two recommendations. One is check your goals, whether it is in line with the goals of the project. So sometimes we are not talking about money, as previously said, but we also have goals like sustainability to reach some better opportunity to enrich our society and so on. So the other recommendation is coming from some other people, but I adore it. Think about why are you doing, not what are you doing. So we are the jury are more focused on causes of your work and its impact on a society. So we are very keen to see an innovative approach from you and a way forward to improve clients' business position, of course, because if they cannot catch up, we cannot catch up also. So we are encourage you to collaborate and communicate with all stakeholders, and we are inviting you to share your experience freely. So jury selection for this year has been established among people from the board of directors, and surely winner from the previous session in 2020. So Thomas Johansson from Finland, Jacqueline Enyar from Netherlands, myself from Serbia, and Marcin Mikulevic from Poland. We see 17 entries from various countries. We had opportunity to get more familiar in the first day of this General Assembly meeting. And 7 out of 17 entries have opportunity to show their work. On the third place, we are having Jordi Voss, who plays a very interesting project with very correct future solution related to the industry project. And he introduced integrated platform that is very important to have in mind in the future. The second place is won by Tor Martin Listad, who modeled dynamic behavior of the bridge, and he reduced some cost of 30% of potential in comparison with the traditional style of doing so. And the winner for this year is Mr. Christoph Oislov, who performed really well, and he succeeded to embrace all aspects of integrated design system. He used parametric design as an innovative way for this beautiful bridge. And we appreciate this work as much as we could. And we decided this year to give him a floor of short version of his brilliant work. So congratulations, Christoph Oislov, for your magnificent work. We encourage also all other all of them performed well. It was magnificent work that you have been presented, and just continue as you started. Thank you, Christopher Vojislav. Floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm really honored for this prize. For sure, it will motivate me for the work that I'm doing. And I always repeat that sharing is caring. And this award is just a confirmation for that. I will just share my screen and tell maybe some facts about me. Let me see, I'm just hearing some background noises. Yeah. Yeah, that's great now. Some facts about me. As said, my name is Krzysztof Vojislav, and I'm come originally from Poland, in Gdańsk. I finished my bachelor degree as a bridge designer, and on my last year, I moved to Norway to study and write my master thesis together with Norwegian Road Administration. For almost 5 years, I have been working in one of Europe's biggest consultant engineering company called Sweco. I work there as a parametric design specialist and VDC developer. In 2020, I got my virtual design and construction certificate from Stanford University. And in my free time, I also work with the BIM together with my colleagues from Norway. We write a blog called beamcorner.com that focus on the BIM knowledge sharing with the other people. So together with the blog, we have also a YouTube channel under the same name where we share knowledge about the parametric design. To be honest, I never, as a consultant engineer, I never thought to be a blogger and YouTuber. However, we believe in BIM Corner that sharing is caring, and Norway is definitely at the top of the digitalization in the construction industry. And it seems the whole world is interesting in that what we implement in Norway. After 1 year, the blog visited almost 200,000 users from over 195 countries. So there is a huge interest from the world, and the prize will for sure nominate me and team for more content creation. And for those who haven't seen presentation on Tuesday, I will mention the project that I have been working for last 2 years as a head of parametric design team. To date is the world's biggest model-based construction built without drawings. And behind this 3D model stands the parametric design team. When we started in 2018, together average age was 27, and who was the leader of this team, was 29. So this team consists of young people called visual programmers. And visual programmers are engineers who are specialized in the subject and they can program as well. So the environmental is still small, but is growing really fast because parametric design can be applied for bridges architecture, but also for roads, rails, geotechnics, you name it. And as Ms. Jurna Kjersti and panelists mentioned in today's presentation about the skills and the new generation. What I want to tell that the new generation of engineers is coming right now and is going to completely change the way as we engineers are working as today. So thank you one more time for this award. And if someone has any question, do not hesitate to write me on the LinkedIn or in the email. Thank you.
Christoph, thank you very much indeed. We've had a heap of congratulations coming in on the system as well. A great time for you. I can only apologise for my phone going off at that point. Yeah, many congratulations to you. I think that caps off a roundtable which is taking us in the right direction, which is further forwards. And on that note, Benoit, let me hand over to you to close the session.
Thank you very much, David. I think we indeed had a very dynamic, energetic, and inspiring session this morning. And so I would like to start with a few words of conclusions by sharing congratulations to all the future leaders that ran for this competition, and the two runners-up, and especially to Christophe. It shows how much our industry is really active, moving forward, innovative, and really blending the traditional engineering skills and the programming skills. So this shows a lot about how active and forward-looking this industry is. I also wanted to thank the panelists and Fernando, Philippe, and George for the I think very interesting discussion we had this morning. I mentioned already, I encourage ourselves, the four of us, to continue on that path. And I also wanted to thank you, all the participants and all the audience, and maybe a special mentions for a few of them to Kevin Roden. I saw that you are here, Kevin, the past president of EFCA. We have also Pablo Bueno, the past president of FIDIC, Mark Pelig, a board member of FIDIC, Italo Goizueta, the operations director of FIDIC. Thank you very much for your participation today. And also thanks to all the board members of EFCA, the past board members, the current, the newly elected, because some were elected, two were elected 2 days ago at the GAM. It was great to have you all around the table today. I cannot miss David. Thank you very much, David, for how brilliantly you facilitated the session this morning. It's always a pleasure to work with you. So let's keep that for the future as well. And I think we all need to send a big round of applause to the Secretariat team in Brussels, to Jan van der Putten, the Secretary General, to Anne Croisio, to Virginie Dahl, and to Sophie Allais. Thank you very much. You were under a lot of pressure over the past few weeks and this EFCA week. So I think it's a success, and it's thanks to you mostly. And maybe my final word is we are in 2021, but next year will be 2022, and there will be another GAM, there will be another conference, and hopefully we can have it together physically. We can share a cup of coffee or a glass of wine together, and let me invite you to join us early June. The date is not completely set yet, but it will be early June in Istanbul, in Turkey. So thank you very much again, and see you all in Istanbul next year.
Thank you.